Manever I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there, I see them yopo.
Hello guys, you are once again welcome to PENDREAM TV, your #1 political channel in Ghana and beyond. Today, I want you to join me listening to another banger. If you're a new member, you have not yet subscribed, please do so for us. Hit the notification bell, like and also share to other members to watch as well. Thank you. We'll be right back.
That has what it needs to produce it is us. We have everything we need. And when Solomon mentioned DRC, I always go back to that book, Nkrumah's account of his attempts to deal with the matter in the Congo that led to the brutal murder of Patrice Lumumba. I think The Challenge in the Congo, the book was called. It's quite a sad book to read. Anyway, Comrade, Kwesi Pratt Jr. would...
First of all, no meaningful review of the year can take place from Pan-African television, without recognizing the strides that we have made as a station and all the many people who have contributed to building this television platform, which is carrying on the Pan-African agenda and participated in the struggles of peoples all over the world, for their emancipation, for their elevation from poverty, from oppression, from exploitation, and so on. So that's where I start from. And in doing that, first, I like to show gratitude to all of you, the millions of you in 46 African countries who have come to adopt this platform as your own. Those of you who watch us on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. You have made this station what it has become. And we are eternally grateful to you for the support we have received and hope that going into 2026, we'll continue to receive this massive support from all of you in the United States of America, in Canada, in Kenya, Botswana, everywhere. Please continue to support this station and make it your own for the realization of your own dreams and ambitions and so on. Then there are many, many, many very special people who have contributed to this success story. And you know them. You see them on the platform. You hear them. There's so many of them that I possibly cannot mention all. But people like Alhaji Inusa Fuseni, ABA Fuseni, Dr. Adumaku Kisi, Solo, lawyer, Apia Dankwa, there's so many of them.
Late Mutala.
Safuhini, London, Suhini, so many of you, Joyce Muktari Bawa, so many of you from all the different political parties. Rashid Pelpo, from all the political parties, without exception.
And you're a man, you're a grey head man.
Yeah, so many, I can't mention, Dr. Tony Edu, in spite of the fact that age is catching up with him and so on, he makes the effort to contribute and so on. So we are so very grateful for all of you for being part of this team. And we do hope that with your support, in the years ahead, we'll become a better station. You understand? Interestingly, a lot of people who are making waves in the new patriotic parties contest, for flag bearership and so on, found it necessary to grant us interviews, and it helped them. You understand? Let me take somebody like Kennedy Akomprekun, Japan. The huge mileage he made from the beginning, I'm told, is because he came to this station and made profound statements that nobody was expecting him to make, admiration for Nkrumah and so on. That's something. There is Dr. Educhum, who was actually the first person to come here for an interview. There is Kwabena J. Japan and so on. But interestingly, I have approached the Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia team and told them that, look, the station is available. Come, we would interview him. You know, if you have a message, come, we'll put it out. Not one person has come from there. Nothing, in spite of all the overtures we have made. And, well, it's up to them. I mean, if they're doing any proper research, it should be obvious to them what the strength of this platform is. If they decide not to use it, it's up to them, you know. But we are available for all parties, for all people to express themselves. Even when we disagree with them. Even when we disagree with them. Because we've learned that there is no uniformity in society. There are differences, there are divergences and so on, you know. So even as we disagree with persons whom we oppose our views and our stand and so on, we still think that they should be given a voice. You know, they should come and sit like all of us sit every day and contest. If your ideas are better than mine, everybody would know that your ideas are better than mine. You know, so this platform is available for everybody, for anybody. Please come, you know, and put out your views and so on. Let's build this platform. Now, having said that, I think that Algeria has made an extraordinary, remarkable move. The Parliament of Algeria, and significantly, has decided unanimously, there was no objection, to declare French colonialism a crime. It is not just the act of colonialism which is a crime, but any attempt to glorify it has also been criminalized. And this is a major step forward. Now, Solo has given the history, and I'm not contesting that history. That's the correct history that Solo has provided. Look, Algeria lost 1.5 million of its citizens in the Algerian War of Independence. I mean, that is no small sacrifice. 1.5 million Algerians lost their lives in the War of Independence. So Algeria knows colonialism and its impact, perhaps more than some other countries and so on, because of what it lost. Algeria, like all colonized people, suffered a deliberate attempt to erase their culture and to replace their culture with European culture. You know, indigenous religion was attacked, indigenous science was attacked. You know, everything Algerian was attacked. And it took Algerian heroes, you know, including Frantz Fanon, who became the first Algerian ambassador to Ghana, Ahmed Bembela and others, to wage the struggle for Algerian independence till its final victory. Now, in talking about Algerian independence, there's something which may sound small and so on, but I can never forget it. During the Algerian War of Independence, there was a Ghanaian worker at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Ghanaian worker, and he decided to donate his salary to the FNL to wage that struggle. He's still alive today. But I met him only about 2 or 3 months ago. He donated his salary for the Algerian War of Independence. I mean, this man is a hero. He's a hero like Frantz Fanon. He's a hero like Ahmed Bembela. He's a hero like those who picked up the weapons and fought. And again, it should tell you about the consciousness of the Ghanaian worker at the time. The consciousness of the Ghanaian worker at the time. There was a war in Algeria. He donated his salary for the war effort. And he's a Ghanaian. I think that he needs to be celebrated. Now, Sana, Algeria's commitment to national liberation does not find expression just in the Algerian War of Independence, in which 1.5 million Algerians lost their lives. Algeria's commitment is total to African liberation, total, unalloyed. To the extent that the first weapon that Nelson Mandela had was given to him in Algiers. The first time Mandela picked up a weapon to learn how to shoot was in Algiers. So many liberation fighters in Africa went to Algeria for training, for military training, for direction, and in fact a lot of them carried Algerian passports. So they had diplomatic cover. You understand? They had diplomatic cover. They were given resources. They were given training and everything. That is the extent of Algeria's commitment to national liberation. And it has not ended. Today, Algeria remains the most strident supporter of the right of the people of Western Sahara to self-determination. Today, as we speak, Algeria is the staunchest supporter of the Polisario of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. That commitment still finds expression today. Now, in talking about the crimes of colonialism, I think it is varied. First and foremost, I like to establish that classical colonialism is a continuation of slavery. And indeed, our current state of neocolonialism also springs from classical colonialism. So there's a certain continuum. You understand? But let us restrict ourselves to classical colonialism. To classical colonialism. Because if we enter into the realm of slavery and so on, perhaps all the 3 hours would not be enough for that discussion. But let's look at classical colonialism and the crimes that it committed against our people. You see, classical colonialism was a deliberate attempt to steal. It was a deliberate attempt by thieves, by plunderers, to steal our resources. And the evidence is all over the place. One of the things that I use as evidence most of the time is simply the railway lines that we have in the colonized places, and doesn't matter whether it's in Asia or Africa or anywhere. If you look at our railway lines, all of them start from areas of the concentration of wealth, resources, and end up in the ports. That's a huge statement by itself. So in Ghana, the railway lines start from places where you have timber, from places where you have gold, where you have bauxite, where you have alumina, and so on. And all of them used to end at the Takoradi port. Today, they end up at Takoradi and Tema ports. So the purpose of developing national infrastructure was not to transform our resources into things that would help us overcome poverty, overcome disease, and so on, but to take these resources out for the benefit of the metropolitan countries. Stealing is a crime by any definition. Okay. Then there were the human rights abuses, and it's unimaginable. You see, the Congo was a special case. The Congo did not become part of the Belgian Empire as such. The Congo was considered as the personal property of King Leopold of Belgium. That was his personal property. It was like his garden. Okay. And the Congo at the time produced rubber. Industry was developing, rubber had become a very important commodity and so on. So King Leopold dealt in rubber So there's a lot of rubber plantations in the Congo. And King Leopold took control of the Congo. Now, every able-bodied Congolese was required to supply a certain quantity of rubber within a given period. Now, Congolese who failed to supply that quantity of rubber had their arms amputated as punishment. Today, how would you call that beyond the description of terrorism? So if you brought rubber and you didn't meet the quantity which was required, one arm was cut off. The next time if you brought rubber who didn't meet the quantity, the other arm was cut off. This is how King Leopold treated Congo and its people. I mean, unimaginable. What crime is bigger than this? And so, now, Senna, that's about the Congo. That's about the Congo. What about the Gold Coast? And there's so many things which were done in the Gold Coast, but I'd like to just give one example. You see, King Charles is supposed to be the king of England today. Until recently, it was his mother. On ceremonial occasions, the king or queen rides in a gold chariot. And you can't believe, you can't believe the opulence, the vulgar opulence. Rides in a gold chariot. And I'm sure all of you have seen pictures of that gold chariot. All of the gold, which built that chariot in which the king or queen of England rides, was taken from Cape Coast. That whole chariot, the gold, was taken from Cape Coast. Just imagine what that gold could have done for the transformation of not just Cape Coast but the whole of Ghana. That gold alone. But they stole it. And they didn't use it for any productive purpose or so. They built a chariot in which the king or queen can sit on ceremonial occasions. They stole the gold, from Cape Coast. And so now, the crimes were humongous. We are still talking about the Gold Coast. Look at how Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Date Wellington and others were murdered at the Christian Castle. Plain murder. Raw murder. Inspector Emery, the British officer, was not punished. Has not been punished until today. They can't just kill them free. You understand? Look at what happened to the Harari people in Namibia. A whole people was exterminated. Extermination. It's only until recently that they've won a case, of genocide. And they're asking for compensation. I think that matter is still under consideration. Look at Kenya. I spent some time with the veterans of the Mau Mau movement. I spent some time with Field Marshal Matumba, the woman Field Marshal of the Mau Mau movement. And I listened to their stories. You talk about Hitler putting people in concentration camps. The British put the people of Kenya in concentration camps, barbed wired. They put them in barbed wired fenced areas, treated them worse than they treated their cattle, and so on. They killed them. They massacred them. The atrocities that the British committed against the Mau Mau movement is unimaginable, and so on. So we can go on and on about these crimes. For me, what is important is that today, if you go to all the Western countries, all the Western countries, they have laws which criminalized what they call the anti-Semitism. So you can be in Accra. You did not take part in the First and Second World Wars. You did not take part in the extermination of the Jews. You understand? But if you just say anything which sounds anti-Jewish, you can be put on trial in any of the Western countries. They have laws. Criminalizing anti-Semitism. Why? Did the Jews suffer anything that the African people did not suffer? Were we not exterminated? Were we not put in concentration camps? Were our resources not stolen? Were we not treated as subhuman and so on? So how come that there can be a law against anti-Semitism, but there's no law against the glorification of colonialism? Why? Is it because we are different? Are we inferior to Jews? Think about it. So Algeria has done the right thing by criminalizing the glorification of colonialism and criminalizing colonialism itself. And Algeria has done the right thing by calling for reparative justice for the crimes of colonialism. And my brother perhaps has not understood me yet. I'll try. You see, I've always maintained that reparation is not about demanding monetary compensation. That is not what reparation is about. Reparation is a demand for the reset of the world.
That I agree with you.
One, because no amount of money can pay for what these European plunderers and adventurers and marauders did to us. No amount of money. Today, if you go to the Western capitals, you go to London, you go to Paris, you go to Bonn and so on, and visit their museums, there's something which is totally shocking. They have on display, they have put on display the heads of African heroes that they cut, they beheaded. The Africans they beheaded, they put their heads on display in museums. I mean, what civilization does that? A civilization which puts human heads on display in museums. Decapitated heads are put in museums on display. You pay money to go and see these heads and so on. And they don't find anything wrong with it. You understand? Now, I happen to be a little older, not by choice, but I happen to be a little older, and I've seen a few things. You know, when we were growing up in Accra, at a certain time in my life, we used to stay at Asylum Down. You know. All that Ringway Estates area, you know, was virtually a whites-only area. If you found any black person around that place, he was a servant, a gardener, and so on. This is my lived reality. My lived reality. Okay? Now, when I was growing up, you see the Rich Hospital, which has become the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, it was a whites-only hospital. It's my lived reality. In fact, in the early 60s, it became the Senior Officers Hospital. And why we even had the Senior Officers Hospital is the problem. You understand? But not just that. There's the Accra Club in the ministry area there. It was a whites-only club. It is independence which began to reshape our country and so on. You understand? Independence. But I'll tell you something else. As I was growing up, as a little kid, if you went to church, the head priest was white. He was white. You went to any good secondary school, the headmaster was white. You went to hospital, the doctor was white. I went to Tema Secondary School. My biology teacher was a white man. He was called Mr. K. My chemistry teacher was a white man. My mathematics teacher was a white man. I went to Tema. This is my reality. You understand? Even the post office, the head postmaster is a white man. You know what they did to us? This is what planted the complex of inferiority in us. Complex of inferiority was planted in us this way. The governor was white. The chief police officer was white. The head of the army was white. So you black person, who are you? This is how the complex of inferiority was planted into us. And the complex of inferiority is one of the major factors for underdevelopment. You know? Until recently, you couldn't play the phantom from in the church. Because the phantom from was seen as evil. The sound of the phantom from was the sound of evil. You couldn't wear African clothing to church. That is how this church sprang up, the Mozamo Disco Cristo Church. The Mozamo Disco Cristo Church sprang up as an affront to white European domination of Christianity. Today you go to the Catholic Church and you see the priest wearing cassocks with small African motifs in it. You may find kente somewhere small in it as well. That's revolutionary. How dare you take kente, put kente on and stand in the pulpit? It was not allowed. Indeed, at a certain stage, even in the Catholic Church, the sermon and so on was not in English, it was in Latin. When they started using English for some of the rituals and so on, it was a revolution. Now that revolution has gone for, you can even use tree and ever and so on in some instances. It was considered an abomination. It is thanks to the pioneering work of people like Bishop Akwesi Sapon that today African tradition is not frowned upon by the Catholic Church. It is the work of people like Bishop Akwesi Sapon and so on. And Bishop Akwesi Sapon argues that the taking of the Holy Communion is not superior to the pouring of libation. And like they are the same. He's a Catholic bishop. This is very revolutionary and so on, you know. So they destroyed everything. There are two stories that I've told over and over again. I think it's becoming boring. But these two stories illustrate something about colonialism, classical colonialism. Today I'll tell only one story, not two. This is the story of the woman from Elmina. I'm sure you heard about that story. Whose cat, a Jamois, scratched her hand. And that she went and took some herbal medicine, African herbal medicine, and put it on the balm in order to prevent infection. They arrested her. They arrested her for witchcraft. They tried her in the Elmina Castle, and from there took her to Portugal to continue her trial, and eventually convicted her for witchcraft. Do you understand the implications of this? This was an attack on African medical science. Because if you use African medical science, we are practicing witchcraft. It was not encouraged. You understand? It's a direct attack on our science. Now, I didn't know until recently when COVID broke out. I got to learn when COVID broke out that vaccination came from West Africa. The whole science of vaccination came from West Africa. Okay? It is an African slave who disclosed these signs of vaccination, I think in Philadelphia and so on, and the Americans jumped onto it and so on. Today, vaccination is not considered an African science. It's been stolen from us. One of the things which has been stolen from us is simply vaccination and so on. You understand? Now, our whole educational system still continues to serve the interests of these thieves, these philanderers, these marauding criminals. You understand? Our educational system still serves their interest, especially history as a subject. The way it's taught and what is taught serves their purpose. In secondary school, one of the essays that we were made to write was an essay about the positive and negative effects of colonialism. We were taught that colonialism had positive effects. So if you don't write in your exam that colonialism had positive effects, your teacher will fail you. Your teacher then was acting as an agent of the perpetuation of the colonial mentality. He was not a history teacher. The teachers who asked us to write about the positive effects of colonialism were agents of colonialism.
They still do.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what is taught in the schools today.
State.
They were agents of colonialism. They were not teaching you history. They were indoctrinating you to accept your inferiority. And you know what the positives are? That they brought education. That they changed what we were wearing then. And so on. I mean, trash. Trash. Complete trash. But this is what we were taught. You understand? Now, if you have to talk about the crimes of colonialism, we will never finish. I travel a lot across Africa. And my experiences are horrifying. I urge people not to go far, just Ghana-Togo border. Go to the Ghana-Togo border. You know what you find on the Ghana-Togo border? One house. The kitchen is in Lomé. The bathroom is in Aflao. That's what colonialism did to us. Because when they met in Bonn, under the chairmanship of Otto von Bismarck, to divide Africa, there was no African at the table. It was only them. And they took pencils and drew lines across the maps and so on, demarcated countries and so on. They didn't care who your grandfather was. They didn't care which language you spoke. They just drew the maps arbitrarily. This is a crime. That is why today, if you go to the Western region, Fred Mewe, that fabulous musician, is an Ivorian. And his uncle is a Ghanaian. Because the lines they drew passed through Nzima. It passed through Nzima. So part of the Nzima people became Ivorians, part of them became Ghanaians. Separated for life. That is a crime. One of the worst crimes is how they've built a system of exploitation which remains. And if you don't act, if the current generation of Africans don't act, it will perhaps remain forever. You see, the French-speaking countries in Africa, they use the CFA. For them to be permitted to use the CFA, they have to agree that all of their foreign reserves will be paid into the Central Bank of France. So all of their foreign reserves are paid into the Central Bank of France. To the extent that when they want loans from France, they are giving their own loans and their own money, and they pay interest on their own money that they have borrowed. Is this not stealing? Is this not stealing? Somebody must explain to me how Niger, after being categorized as the poorest country, one of the 3 poorest countries in the world, within 1 year became the fastest growing economy in the world. How did that happen? Just by rejecting French colonialism. Okay? So these crimes have been committed against us, and I am so proud of the Algerian people, their parliament and government for taking these measures. Now, in saying this, I also just remember that the African Union has decided that the Africa's champion for reparations is His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. He's the AU champion for reparations. And that must mean something. That must translate into some action and so on. So far, I'm surprised, and I'm really surprised, that Ghana has not put in place the mechanism for pushing this search for reparative justice at the national level. I know he has appointed Spilgabra as his ambassador for... So what does that mean? By now, we should set up a high-powered committee populated by people of integrity and intellect, high intellect, to begin to identify clearly the crimes which were committed against the Ghanaian people. The mechanism for seeking reparative justice, actually calculating the cost to us, not money, the cost to us. The slave records are there. So we can tell with certainty how many people were taken from Komansi, how many people were taken from Adansi and so on, and put on the slave ships. We need to compile that figure. You understand? That is cost. Compile that figure. Is it 1 million people were taken out of Ghana? Is it 2 million people? How did that affect their environment and so on? Who were taken? Is it the masons? Is it the architects and so on? We need to have a national committee on reparations. You know, national committee on reparations with big brains like Dr. Yao Graham and so on. Not pro-Western stooges. They won't help our cause. You understand what I mean? I mean, if President Mahama is going to set up a national commission on reparations, it should be populated by people who accept that reparations are necessary and so on. You understand? Not people who will fight us on behalf of the colonialists, not no colonial elements and so on. It's important that he appoints, sets up a commission on reparations. After all, he's the AU champion on reparations. In fact, what Algeria has done, Ghana should have started it. You understand? So we need to have this commission on reparations starting work now. I know that many others are doing it. I mean, the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, the law faculty has actually started building the legal case for reparations. The African Association of Lawyers, you know, the African Bar Association has already started some work and so on. Ghana should be seen to be leading that effort because of the very special privilege that our president has been given by his peers. And what is interesting, it appears that all his peers in West Africa agreed that he should become the next AU chairperson. It must bring value to us as African people. You understand? It must bring value to us as African people. And what value will come to us? You see, I was talking about reparations as not an appeal for money. Now, if it is not an appeal for money, what is it? As far as I'm concerned, it's about resetting the world, the entire world. Resetting the world and its institutions. Changing the United Nations, pulling down the United Nations Security Council and erecting something more democratic in its place. It's about changing the IMF, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. Now, why do I say this? At the time that these institutions were being constructed, we were not there. Senna, we were not there. 1945, we were still a colony of Britain. We were not recognized as a nation. So Britain, the US, the Soviet Union and others sat down and developed a structure to govern the world and its institutions like the World Bank and so on, without taking into account our interest. Because we were not recognized as states. We were not recognized as people with a sovereign right and so on. So we're not there. And that is how come today there are 1.4 billion Africans, not million, billion Africans. And this small country like France, queer country like France, has a bigger voice in the UN than 1.4 billion Africans. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Does it make sense that Britain has a bigger voice in the UN than the 1.4 billion Africans? So we need to reset the UN. Recently, I was in Algiers to attend the Foreign Ministerial Conference, AU Foreign Ministerial Conference on reparations. I didn't go there as a foreign minister. I didn't go there as a representative of Ghana government. So I went there as a technical person, you understand, in my own right. And one of the most brilliant speeches, and you won't believe it, one of the most brilliant speeches was made by the Togolese Minister for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora. He made one of the most brilliant speeches. He said, look, why are we still going to the UN every September to go and make speeches that nobody takes into account? This is Togo, Togolese Foreign Minister. And he told his counterparts that perhaps it's about time to stop going to that UN General Assembly meeting. And that if for 1 year Africa refused to go, the impact will be so huge that the world will wake up to the injustice which is being committed against the people of Africa. The Togolese Foreign Minister. Togolese Foreign Minister. Not Algerian Foreign Minister. Togolese Foreign Minister. That was his position in the meeting. You know, we've become, Jesus Christ. I mean, I look around Africa today. Look around Africa today, and all of you look around Africa today. You are wondering, what happened to the Modibukators? What happened to the Sekoturis? Even what happened to the Nyereres who were not up to standard? What happened to them? None! You don't find any African leader like that. America is kicking all of them around. Kicking all of them around. Why? Because imperialism has managed to put the fear of God in them. Okay? When you become president and you learn of how Patrice Lumumba was executed and his body was dissolved in acid, and you fear, you fear your skin, you don't want to suffer and so on. Anything they tell you, you will do because you don't want your body to be dissolved in acid. When you hear about how they conspired to assassinate Chris Hani, then they fear. But you see, if you fear, you have no business getting into leadership. Leadership, especially of Africa in today's context, is not for cowards. The leadership of Africa today is not for anyway. Sana, I'm finished.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, don't forget to, in fact, one of the things you should do in 2026 is make time to read his book on reparation. Give you the history, the law, the background, and everything. Well, if you just join us, we're just discussing. We are still discussing because we are here to listen to Ni. Ni now has the responsibility of heading a program.
Thank you for watching. PENDREAM TV really appreciate your time and say God bless you for the good work you are doing. We much appreciate your time here on PENDREAM TV. And if you really enjoyed this video, please do leave a comment below, like and also share to other members to watch as well. Don't forget to subscribe to keep you updated whenever you made a post. Thank you and stay blessed.
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Ah nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.